Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. Hope you are all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of SEC Unfiltered Live here, the first show on SEC Unfiltered Live of the 2024 calendar year. And folks, we have got a jam-packed show for you all. Appreciate you all tuning in. I see Will Luttrell, Ethan K, Sir Big Spurs, John Edward, Billy Cotton. Appreciate you all. Thank you all so much, guys. Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, first time checking us out, first things first, appreciate you checking us out and tuning in. But be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop new video content as well, which we do on a daily basis. Also, check out the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys. You can find us there at SEC Unfiltered. Be sure to rate and review the show. Subscribe there also, guys. Again, thank you all so much for doing that. And, of course, check us out on all social media channels. Wherever you get your content, you can find us there at SEC Unfiltered. What a night last night of college football, guys. We're going to dive into all that, much more. We are kicking off the show in just a couple minutes with our good friend, Jake Crain of Crain and Company, guys. It feels good to be back in the swing of things, right? Things get really crazy during the holidays, especially that week in between Christmas and New Year, and nobody knows what day it is, and there's bowl games on all day, which is great, but you sort of get like in a rut or almost lost in the shuffle. And now we sit here, we're past the holiday, we're into 2024. And as you can tell, I am fired up to be chatting with you guys today. Like I mentioned, guys, a jam-packed show today. We are going to spend the entirety of today talking all things SEC bowl games. Of course, what happened last night in the college football playoff is Alabama falls to Michigan, Texas falls to Washington. So we have Wolverines and Huskies next Monday night in the national title game, guys. I'll break down both of those games. Also, of course, the ReliaQuest Bowl, which took place earlier yesterday, LSU overcoming their historically bad defense to find a way to get a dub in that game. We'll also talk Tennessee. They absolutely blew out the Iowa Hawkeyes, and Nico looked good in doing so. I'll talk about that, guys. Full takeaways from all those games. And, of course, guys, we will end this show with our daily mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. Guys, in case you did not know, we are live every single day right here, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, right? We got that daily mailbag segment every day, last 30 or 45 minutes of the show. Want to hear from you, where we let you guys and we have you guys get involved in the action. And, of course, guys, we discuss an array of topics. We have daily guests on the show as well. We have a lot of fun here on these airwaves, guys. So we're talking football. It's a huge week, guys. SEC basketball conference play begins this weekend. Later in the week, we'll talk all that, guys. And wouldn't you know it, guys, we're only 45 days away from opening day, one of my favorite times of year when baseball season begins and you got all the sports kind of intersecting and overlapping and what have you. So it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. It's going to be a really, really good time. And again, I appreciate you all being along for the ride. That being said, guys, we got a lot to get into when it comes to college football playoff, SEC bowl season as a whole. And I'm so happy to say he is the first guest of the 2024 calendar year. There is literally nobody better we could have kicked it off with than our good friend, Jake Crain of Crain and Company. He joined the show. Jake, what's going on, my man? Rocking the Liberty hoodie. Did you feel like feeling like a loser to start off 2024 after that game yesterday, rocking the Liberty gear?
No, to be honest with you, I kind of totally forgot I had this on. Hugh Freeze actually sent this to me when he was at Liberty and one of those Hugh Freeze bobbleheads. So, no, look, I mean, Liberty got absolutely drugged. Everybody thought that was going to happen. They really couldn't compete up front. Oregon knew that. I knew that. Bo Nix was in there to break the record, and that took him about 12 minutes, about a quarter and a half. But no, man, I mean, after yesterday, and as fantastic as both of those games were, in really totally different style of games, but both very competitive, both a lot of fun. I am a little sad, though, because college football, man, it's pretty much over season-wise. I mean, we got one game left. We got the Senior Bowl, and I love that. Shout out my guy Jim Nagy. Can't wait to get down there and have a blast down there on the Bay. But man, it just always goes by so fast.
And I want to apologize, Jake. I feel like I opened up a little bit harshly. I do like the hoodie, by the way, and the fact Hugh sent it over is
No,
good
Chris,
looks from Coach Freeze.
Chris, I love it. Bring it. You know me, I wake up and choose.
Hey, I just think it's more proof we need a G5 playoff. That was my takeaway. It was like Liberty and Oregon shouldn't be playing for the same trophy here.
No, it's weird because we've interviewed G5 coaches and they're like split on it. They're like split halfway. Half of them want their own playoff. The other half don't. I think the half that don't want that group of 5 playoff are either at a spot that could possibly transition to Power 5 and see success, like we all thought Houston at some point could do, to place like Tulane. But most of the guys that are at your normal run-of-the-mill G5s, they want their own playoff, man, and they should have it.
Jake, let's start with the first important question. How did bowl season treat you from the gambling perspective? How'd you come out when it comes to the gambling side?
Well, it was I was in the green pretty decently. It wasn't just dominating, but was winning money, and then hit a $500 parlay after Ole Miss took care of. But I had Ole Miss plus 3.5. I didn't have a money line, even though I picked them to win on our show. But won a 9-leg. It was 9-leg, $500, 10 to win 500. Kind of an underdog parlay, man. I had like Boston College to cover, Georgia Tech to cover, and then Ole Miss there. Then I had Missouri money line. So yeah, ended up sweeping up, man. I mean, our end of the year numbers are insane. It's posted on social media. I think I ended up like plus 25 units in college football. Blaine is like plus 36 units in the NFL because he keeps hitting these first touchdown scores. Like, I'm waiting for somebody like in suits with briefcases to show up at my brother's house. Like, that's how weird this has gotten.
Jake Crain of Crain & Company joins us every week. Jake, let's go ahead and get into what happened yesterday and last night. Alabama and Michigan. The Michigan Wolverines take down Nick Saban and company 27-20, overcoming special teams blunders left and right. Alabama, obviously the deficiencies on the offensive line, surrendering 6 sacks. And there was the final play call, which I know many were critical of. Your thoughts on the game as a whole? Did anything surprise you in that ball game? And then thoughts on the final play call as well, Jake, because I've seen some say that it was supposed to be an RPO, the low snap wrecked the play. And then I heard Nick Saban after the game say that it was a quarterback run.
Yeah,
so
Q power.
Yeah. It was a power. Okay,
that was Q power.
Right.
Listen, first off on the game, I thought we got 2 fantastic games last night. Like I said, they were a little bit different. There were some things that really surprised me. I thought each team got too cute, but in a different way. Alabama in the first half reverted back schematically to pre-LSU Bama, which I'm telling you, Chris, and number one, congratulations on SEC Unfiltered, my friend. It's fantastic product already. Really enjoy it. The first half play calling was pre-LSU Alabama. If you go back and watch, it was almost like when Bama played LSU, they were like, all right, we're going to have to probably score 50 to beat LSU, which you can on that LSU defense that made Wisconsin look like the Harlem Globetrotters the other night. But they kind of during the LSU game, called plays and had the game plan tailored to what Jalen Milroe does best, and that's being versatile. Jalen Milroe is not a pocket passer a la Dan Marino, a la Michael Penix, really, that needs to sit there and just beat you from the pocket the whole game. That's not that he can't, but that's not his best move. You know what I'm saying? He's more a break dancer than he is, waltz. He's a guy that you need to move the pocket. You need to have quarterback designed runs. The RPO game needs to be strong. But it's almost like that Bill O'Brien comment made them revert back to, well, we're going to prove to everybody that Jalen Milroe is really a Drew Brees style player. That's not who he is. Then in the second half, you saw him mix in those RPOs more, the QB design runs, and they had more success. So I was baffled that was the game plan by Tommy Rees going in against a Michigan team that you weren't just going to line up and bully up front and beat from the pocket. I think Michigan was as shocked as I was in the first half. Now, on the Michigan side, they were running the ball down Alabama's throat early, but they would gash them a couple times and then throw it 3 times in a row, or gash them a couple times and then just drop back pass on first down instead of running play action. It was almost like everybody knew you were going to your right. You went to your right and scored, but then you just decided to go left just to go left. And finally, it kind of the adjustments figured themselves out. But there were two constants last night. One, Michigan's defense was incredible. And look at the step that Michigan had taken. Chris, we remember seeing these Big Ten teams or these teams outside of the SEC that maybe they could compete up front, but they're getting melted in the back end. They just didn't have the cats. Maybe they can compete in the back end, but they're getting slaughtered up front, a la Bama's run against Notre Dame and these other cats when they used to dominate. Michigan had it all last night. They could bully you. They could fight with the bullies up front. If Jalen Milroe had time, which I know there are a lot of sacks, but there were some places where he had time, they were able to cover guys in the back end. And it seemed like Alabama could never really hit that big scramble play. I call them etch-a-sketch plays where the play breaks down and you just got to create something. So that was kind of the bad. And then the good was obviously Michigan's defense and how bad Michigan's special teams was. They gave Alabama 11 points. You dropped a punt inside your 40. You missed an extra point. You missed a field goal. You spotted them 11, and you still won. I think that shows you how good this Michigan team is. But make no mistake, neither team, I thought, played complimentary football very well last night. Michigan was just better when they had to be at the end than Alabama.
And on that note, Jake, I think was one of the things that was most surprising to me was, I really expect in the second half when things got tight, I thought it would be Alabama that would rise to the occasion. I was really impressed with the way Michigan, that last drive was as clutch as you'll see. And it's like Bama had opportunities to deliver that knockout punch, that knockout blow, and take control of the game, and they just never did it. They just couldn't do it. And that surprised me a bit.
Well, it was Michigan finally getting over the hump. Like we see this in waves, right? Like you saw, remember it was Georgia. Georgia just couldn't get past Bama. They just couldn't get past. They take another step, then Bama would beat them. They take another step, and then Bama would beat them. It took them a couple years to get over that hump. It seems like Michigan got over the Ohio State hump, and then they've gone through this chapter by chapter, right? And it finally got to the point where that same group of guys, and this is why I picked Michigan to win the national championship, when all year people were saying, oh, Michigan's schedule sucks. It's a joke. We don't know how good Michigan is. Yes, we do. Their whole team's coming back. I've watched Blake Corum do this for a long time now. I've watched J.J. McCarthy and Roman Wilson and the guys they have up front do this for a long time. I know who Michigan was. Georgia was more unknown to me going into the year than Michigan was. That's another reason I picked them. So to see Michigan finally not blow it, yeah, that's new. But that's what happens when you have experience returning. The unteachable, intangible. So, again, and people will say Michigan's schedule was soft. Okay, well, look what they're doing now. They just took out Ohio State. They just took out Bama. And now you got to play a Washington team that Washington's strength in some ways is Michigan's strength. These are two old teams. And when you have two old teams, they don't panic. That's the difference. It's the old bull, young bull sitting at the top of the hill staring down at a herd of calves. One wants to run down there. The other one wants to walk down there, if you know what I'm saying.
Now, Jake, Bama lost, Bama lost this football game for many reasons outside of the last play, but obviously that is the one that most will remember, and that's the one that's highlighted. That's the one that'll be talked about today. Your thoughts on that fourth down play call from the 3-yard line?
Well, I even tweeted this out before the play. I thought they were going to run that split zone bluff. What Michigan scored on, their touchdown before, when they hit Roman Wilson, when he goes in motion and you fake it to the back, and the guy that's supposed to be sealing that line of scrimmage bluffs the edge defender, and then you hit him in the flat for a touchdown. And it looked like that's what they lined up to run. You had the tight end opposite the back. The tight end would have split to the field at the snap, fake to the back. Jalen Milroe can keep it or he can spit it out. Michigan called timeout. They saw what they were in. So Bama went back, came out, and it looked like Bama was going to run the same play, but the back and the tight end lined up on the same side. You can't really run that play when the back and the tight end are lined up on the same side pre-snap. And then you saw Bama take that timeout, and Nick Saban was going nuts on the sideline. I think they lined up wrong, and they were going to run that play. So then when they came back, they're like, well, hell, we showed it to them twice. And they just made the decision, we're going to live or die with our best player, which Jalen Milroe is their best player on offense, running the ball. And if he actually followed his pullers, because it was a power play, I think he would have had a pretty decent chance to score. But what I think in his mind happened was a couple plays before that. You remember he had that Q counter where he just ran through everybody in the middle, just almost like he just closed his eyes and bullied his way down inside the 5. I think he tried to do that again, and he just ran into a wall. So I don't hate the play call by any stretch of the imagination, but I would have tried to give Jalen Milroe an out with some sort of RPO. I would have tried to run bluff. Hey, if the edge player gets too wide, take it up underneath. If they want to come and tighten down, spit it out. You got a two-way go. But no, I don't hate the call. I really don't. I hate the game plan. I hate that, but I don't hate the call.
So, Jake, where does Alabama go from here now? You know, we know Jalen Milroe's back next year. Nick Saban, I don't think, is near retirement anytime soon. He seems like he's chipper as ever. So, I mean, you know, is it adding an offensive line that's capable of protecting their quarterback? Is it adding another run stopper? Like obviously, you know, get to the college ball playoff. That's not a good enough season in Tuscaloosa if you don't win it all. So where do you see Bama going from here? They've obviously got to get the offensive line figured out that surrendered 44 sacks this past season.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be really good. I mean, look at what they bring back. Look at what they're able to do in the transfer portal. Look at what they do in recruiting. It's not how talented Alabama's going to be. We know they're going to be super talented. Is can they, kind of like you alluded to, plug enough holes in the ship to be able to fix the problems they had the year before? Now, you lose a decent amount in the secondary, but you also have recruited at an unbelievably elite level. You still got downs. You've got guys that we've seen before. So Alabama's not going anywhere. It's a 12-team playoff. They're going to get in the playoff, but as long as Nick Saban is at Alabama, you know, they make it a lot easier to prognosticate what's going to happen.
Now, Jake, to the other college football playoff game, the Sugar Bowl, Texas and Washington, a thriller, like you mentioned, a little bit different way, though, with the offensive shootout. Michael Penix Jr. is a wizard. Guy has a rocket on his left shoulder in Texas. Kind of went quiet in that third quarter, and it cost him. Your thoughts on that ball game? A game that, again, literally came down to the wire. Texas down there inside the red zone. Chance to win it on the last play and just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, just another incredible game. You know, you look at, I was just in awe of Michael Penix, the way he operates. It's not just the throws he makes, it's how he gets his body in position within the pocket to make those throws. You know, we always, talk about quarterbacks, how impressive it is that they can extend the play on the outside and, oh, he breaks a tackle and he's outside the pocket and finds somebody deep, something that Jalen Milroe did a lot of. But there's a beauty and an art form into being able to extend the play from within the pocket. And that's why I think Michael Penix should be the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft. He has the best pocket presence. He has one of the quickest releases, and he can make every single throw on the board, and it's not even close. The hashes get wider, or tighter, who cares? I mean, the dude can throw it from one end of the field to the other like it's nothing. But the difference, what separates the Michael Penixes from the Joe Miltons, is that Michael Penix just doesn't have the fastball. He's got the curveball. He's got the changeup. He's got the split. He can make every single throw, the nuanced throws. That's why it's called passing and not throwing. That's the difference. So I was in awe of him and what they have at wide receiver. You know, I thought in the first half, Texas got a little bit too imaginative on offense and should have just run the ball. Like Texas was dominating running the ball. That's why I'm looking at this matchup against Michigan. And if I'm Michigan, why would I not just run it and keep Michael Penix's ass over on the side with this new clock rule? Like, I would much rather you have to score 6 out of 8 drives to be able to beat me and have to have that narrow window to be able to have, 13, 14 attempts at it. You give that group that many attempts, they're going to score a lot of points because they're that talented. But I thought Michigan got away from the run a little bit, got back to it, and then fumbled the ball in the second half. That game was always going to come down to the final possession. But I think you saw a team in Washington that, once again, was more experienced than the Texas team they were playing. So, look, Texas is going to be fine with what they returned. It was good to see them back. But, I mean, this Washington team, I said this on Crain Company this morning, Chris. They're the most physical finesse team I've ever seen. That's the best way I can put it. That's the best way I can possibly put it. They're the most physical finesse team that I've ever seen.
To your point, Jake, about the time of possession, Washington won that 36 minutes to 23 minutes. So they controlled that game for the most part, like you mentioned. If Texas' game plan was to keep the ball out of Michael Penix's hands,
Yeah.
they did not
It
accomplish
worked.
that, to say the least. You just mentioned, Jake, I want to hit this too. I know I'm asking you a lot of questions, looking way too far ahead, but that's kind of what we do, right, as sports fans. Texas falls in the college ball playoff, but all in all, I would have to say a successful season in Austin. You mentioned getting over the hump, Texas getting back to a position like this. How do you feel now they're set up, obviously, going into the SEC first year upcoming in 2024? I know from some, SEC fans, maybe there's still some speculation, are they actually going to be that good in the SEC versus the Big 12? How do you feel like they're set up to carry this momentum and carry the success from 2023 into next year?
Well, it's kind of like I talked about earlier. There seems to be this similar trek toward getting to the top. And you look at a team like Georgia, right? They got there, didn't win it. Got there, didn't win it. Finally won it, right? Michigan got there, didn't win it. Got there, didn't win it. Have a chance now to win it. Texas just got there, right? You return a lot on the offensive line. You obviously return Quinn Ewers. They're recruiting at a very high level. It's Texas. Do I think they're going to come in and dominate the SEC? No. Would I be shocked if they came in and had a really good year one with what they returned? Yes. But I'm looking at this thing in cycles, man. I mean, football's cyclical. I think we have a bad habit of kind of thinking this is the way it's going to be forever. Texas is going to be able to compete in the SEC because they have money, that they have resources, that they have the ability to be able to do it. Now they've made the college football playoff. Sark has another kind of arrow in his quiver. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be in the running year one just because they're going to have more continuity than a lot of teams.
Jake, let's move to the best of the rest of bowl season in the SEC. Let's start with the Orange Bowl, which maybe wasn't the best. It was just a downright butt-whooping. Georgia 63-3 over Florida State. What did you take away from that game? I thought, Jake, while I understand and I still agree that, if you say that Florida State got screwed by the committee, I don't disagree with you because they were an undefeated Power 5 champion, but I thought not enough was made of, both teams had an option of whether they wanted to play in the game or not. Georgia had, in my mind, as little to play for, maybe less to play for than Florida State. And their guys chose to play, and FSU's guys didn't, and they beat their ass. I mean, I just, you know what I mean? So I was more so, and maybe this is some of my SEC bias starting to creep in, but I was just more so impressed with Georgia than I was feeling bad for Florida State anyway. Your thoughts in that game that effectively was over at halftime?
Yeah. Well, Rude Tank, I don't know who you are, but he said I'm a turd. Is that the Alabama fan description of it? Because if that's the case, buddy, you could not be further from the truth. Here's what I think. I think you got to give Georgia their flowers. They obviously showed up. I mean, they played FSU's practice squad. I mean, that's who they played, and they beat them to death. It's hard to beat anybody, 63-3. But let's not pretend that this was any sort of matchup that was somewhat close. I think Georgia did have more to play for. Right? They have pretty much a lot of guys coming back, including Carson Beck. I mean, Jordan Travis is gone. Keon Coleman is gone. I laugh when people say, oh, Florida State must have bad culture. You don't have bad culture and go 13-0. And you did it with a lot of guys that came in from the transfer portal. There were a lot of mercenaries on Florida State's team. So are you shocked that when you brought in mercenaries, that when you're not playing for a championship after you just went 13-0, that they opt out? Like, we live in the age of opt-outs now. This isn't 2003. Georgia had a lot of, and you know what? Bryce Young played and Will Anderson Jr. played. That's great, but every circumstance is different. I laugh when you say if it was me, I wouldn't have played in the game. I said this when it happened. We went 13-0. I don't care. There it is, 13-0 in a Power 5 conference. We beat two SEC teams, right? One on the road, the other in a neutral site. We won our conference championship in a Power 5 conference. So you mean to tell me that I owe you something now after you kept me ranked in the top 4 all the way until the last day because it's a TV show? We go undefeated. We're perfect with backup quarterback, with a third-string quarterback, which shows great culture to me because other guys could have folded the tent after Jordan Travis went out and said, oh, well, we're not going to win it anyway. We might as well not play. That's not what happened. So you mean to tell me I go 13-0 in a Power 5 conference and I don't get rewarded, but now I'm going to go play in a bowl game. It doesn't mean nothing. So now I get to go prove it? No, I proved it to your ass 13 times in a Power 5 conference. So it's not a feel bad for Florida State. I don't blame Florida State, those guys, for not playing, some of them. I don't at all. Like, it'd be different if this was an even circumstance. John Edward, I was asked about it, dog. Like, what do you mean? Like, follow the bouncing balls here, bro. Like, it wasn't a 12-1 team and a 12-1 team and one got left out, right? That I can understand that argument. This wasn't the case. So Georgia deserves their flowers. They beat the hell out of Florida State. But we do have to understand that Georgia, with what they returned, was playing with a lot more than what Florida State actually had to return, because a lot of them were mercenaries from the transfer portal. So we got to look at the circumstance.
So, Jake, to piggyback off that, because I saw, and I'm sure you did as well, a lot of Florida State chatter last night after that Rose Bowl. FSU fans upset, saying that, thank goodness they didn't put FSU in, because maybe their quarterback would have thrown for 116 yards and the game would have went to overtime. Oh, wait, that's what happened. Did Florida State fans, do you agree? Do you think they had a legitimate gripe after watching that game last night?
I mean, I think you had a legitimate gripe in the first place. Like, regardless of how the game went, it ended up being a hell of a game. You knew it was going to be. Nobody's saying that Alabama's bad. Like, I thought, in my opinion, that I would probably, on a neutral field, bet on Alabama to beat Florida State, even with Jordan Travis. But the case was, Florida State was undefeated, right? You kept them in the top four. It didn't drop them. You kept them in the top four the whole time. They did everything they were supposed to do. And then you dropped them at the end for a team that had a loss. That's my problem. Now, I think Michigan would have beat Florida State. But after watching that last night, if all Florida State's guys played with Tate Rodemaker playing, you mean to tell me you don't think Florida State couldn't have scored a couple points? That Florida State's defense is pretty damn good. And I'll be honest with you, I thought J.J. McCarthy played awful last night. I didn't think he played very well. Outside of the one-handed catch and then the throw on the trick play, I thought he was very, very average. And obviously Jalen Milroe was very average. Brock Glenn threw for more yards than Jalen Milroe. But at the end of the day, the pooch was screwed from the beginning, so it doesn't matter.
So, Jake, back to the Orange Bowl discussion, and I thought it was really interesting yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw this watching College Game Day, Kirk Herbstreit, which I think you could tell he was speaking out of somewhat of emotion and expressing frustration. The question then turned to, okay, well, how do we fix it? How do you fix bowl season? And so many of us that love college football, the history of college football, love these bowl games. And it's weird to think they, quote unquote, mean nothing. But with the playoff, that's kind of the point we've reached. But Kirk Herbstreit spoke on it and say, hey, guys are opting out and we're questioning the commitment level, or do they care, or what have you. Let's just have the playoff and have no more bowl games. I think that might have been an extreme take from him. But how do we fix it? How do we ensure that what happened in the Orange Bowl never happens again?
Well, I don't think you can now. I think this is the problem the NFL has. They're trying to control the uncontrollables. The only two ways you're going to make bowl games important are you keep expanding the playoff, which that obviously makes more bowl games more important because you're playing for a championship, or two, you got to have some sort of monetary gain. And that's not going to happen. So I have a couple ideas. I don't think we need bowl tie-ins. I think we should play the bowls the 2 weeks after the regular season. Like, I don't think we should sit here and wait all this time for all these bowls. Like, I think we should have some sort of fun rule change or some like legal celebrations in bowl games and stuff like that, like they have in the NFL. But outside of money or expanding the playoff, you're not going to make these bowl games important again. Like you're not. That's the reality we live in. So I don't want them to end, right? But I think the biggest problem that people have with this one is because it wasn't the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Like, it was the Orange Bowl. It was the New Year's Six game. That's why you're hearing this outcry. It's amazing. I don't hear that same outcry about the guys that set out for Ohio, in the third bowl guy in the ChristianMingle.com Bowl or whatever it was. Like, I don't hear any complaining about that one. But since it was the Orange Bowl, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. But I don't think you're going to have this same circumstance with an undefeated Power 5 team. Now, you'll have a team that's pissed off they didn't get the 12th spot. But, technically, would they be playing in the New Year's Six game?
And what's funny, Jake, I think about the conversation too, is I genuinely don't think bowl season necessarily is going anywhere because people still watch the games. I I find myself watching pretty much all of them. Maybe I shouldn't speak for the majority, but I don't know. Like, it's especially that week in between Christmas and New Year, there's nothing else going on. And like, they have done a really good job on capitalizing that everybody's home, chilling for the holidays. Let's throw a bunch of bowl games on. It doesn't matter if they're a 10 on the entertainment scale or a 1. People are going to tune in for the most part. So,
it's like that blue magic, man. They football ends for a little bit, and then they just slow drip it. So you're like, God, like all day you're like, man, I cannot wait to watch Ohio and Wyoming play, man. I can't wait. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're used to getting, everything, all this stuff every weekend. You got Thursday night football, Friday, obviously Maction, Fun Belt. Then it just ends, and they're like, hey, man, what do you think about a little San Diego State and Kent State all up in your face?
Jake, let's go back to the Peach Bowl and Cotton Bowl. Ole Miss getting a huge win over Penn State. Missouri, a big win over Ohio State. Of those two teams, because both reach 11 wins, both go into the offseason with tons of momentum now, both cap off really special years. Talk about those two games and maybe who impressed you more from those two performances.
If you watch Crain and Company, you made some money off those. I mean, Ole Miss, I think impressed me more just because it was going to be hard for Missouri to do that. Now, I know that Ohio State didn't have as many opt-outs as some people thought, but there was obviously some big pieces missing from Ohio State, including the quarterback, and it ended up being the third-string quarterback coming in, to try and save them. They really couldn't throw the ball, but it was impressive nonetheless. But Ole Miss, especially the way the game started, because if you go back, Ole Miss was getting pushed around at the beginning of that game. I mean, absolutely shoved that first drive by Penn State. I mean, those guys weren't getting touched. Singleton, those guys weren't getting touched for literally the first 10 yards. And I was like, this may get ugly for Ole Miss if they can't stop this, but they found a way to hold them to a field goal. The offense got rocking and rolling. But I look at the way Ole Miss won, the way they were able to finish, the plays they were able to make on the outside. Lane cared about the game, which I thought was important. But you add that momentum with what they're bringing in from the transfer portal. I still think the best sign from Ole Miss during that bowl game was the graphic of the players from the transfer portal. That's the thing that should give you the most hope. Tyler Barron, Walter Nolan, Juice Wells, which y'all know very well. I mean, I'm looking at Ole Miss right now. I don't know how they're not preseason top 5, man. I mean, your 2 losses this year were at Georgia and at Bama. I mean, you look at their schedule next year; it's one of the lighter ones in the SEC with getting away from divisions. So I tell you, man, I was impressed with both. Congrats to Drink, big dub for them. But I look at Ole Miss, man, they're a problem.
Going back to the games yesterday, Jake, I think what you saw yesterday, too, is one of the beautiful parts of bowl season is that guys can get opportunities, whether it be guys that were backups all year long or whatever it might be, and they get an opportunity to shine, and when it works out well, it's a great thing. LSU and Tennessee both experienced that. Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier taking over at quarterback with Jaden Daniels opt out, and then Nico Iamaleava taking over as QB1 for Tennessee. Both shined. Garrett Nussmeier was incredible in that shootout, overcoming a terrible defense yet again, which it's a miracle that team won 10 games with that defense. And then Tennessee just taking Iowa to the woodshed. I had admittedly, Jake, not watched an Iowa game all that extensively this year. I mean, the only knowledge I had of Iowa was just bet the under every week. And I'm glad to say the under hit again, barely, but it did. But Iowa's just horrific offensively. I don't know. It's that quarterback, I'm not convinced his shoes weren't like 100 pounds each the way he was running around in the pocket. Either way, though, what'd you take away from those two teams? Again, 2 new quarterbacks. I call Nussmeier new. He's been around the block a while. But those 2 guys get opportunities. I think both fan bases have a reason to feel really optimistic about what they have going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest, travesties this year is that LSU's defense was so egregious. We didn't get to see that offense in the college football playoff. That offense was incredible with what Jaden Daniels was doing. Can you imagine him in this matchup against the guys you be playing against? I mean, it's a shame with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. and Mason Taylor and those guys. But I thought Nuss did a good job, especially once he settled in. I mean, he hadn't started a game in a while, like a lot since high school. Like started one. Remember, he came in, I believe, in the SEC championship against Georgia last year after Jaden Daniels got hurt. But he was the guy. Little nervous early. I thought Wisconsin was giving up a lot underneath. They wanted to keep everything in front of them. But that still doesn't mean you don't take shots, right? And I thought LSU finally started taking some shots in the second half. But Tanner Mordecai, I mean, again, LSU's defense made a lot of offenses look competent. A lot of offenses. But I thought Tanner Mordecai finally looked like what we thought Tanner Mordecai was going to be at Wisconsin this year in that Phil Longo system with Luke Fickell there as the head coach. I was impressed with LSU, but we knew a little bit about Nessmeyer. We know how good LSU was on offense. I was just interested to see defensively how LSU played, and man, it wasn't much better. And then you look at Tennessee. I understand why Joe Milton started, right? You don't want to start a freshman, a young guy in the SEC. I get it, but after you realize what Joe Milton was, who you thought he was, who a lot of us thought he was, not this superstar that we got absolutely plastered on every screen in the world before the season because he hit a golf cart at the Manning Passing Academy. But once you figured that out, I'm surprised after watching Nico. And we've been fooled before in bowl games. Hell, Joe Milton himself fooled a lot of people last year against Clemson. But how you don't play this kid more? I mean, he's got a chance to be special. Like special. Watching the way he's able to run and change direction as long as he is, very rarely do you see that. And he's a very competent thrower. But by not playing him, you robbed him of some very important experience. And you robbed him from being able to make some very valuable mistakes. This is what I said about Jackson Arnold in Oklahoma. Everybody's down on Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold put a lot of mistakes on tape. And as a young guy, that's not an awful thing. Now, you never want to screw up. You always want to play great. But you want to be able to make those mistakes so during the offseason and this next year coming into it, you say, Nico, hey, here's our game tape from last year. Here's where we got to improve, and here's why. Here's what you saw. Here's what you thought. Here's where we got to improve. Because, again, experience is the unteachable intangible. So when I look at this Josh Heupel-led offense for 2 straight years now, you looked at Joe Milton and you said, you're better than Hendon Hooker. Wrong. You looked at Joe Milton, you're better than Nico. We'll see. But, man, at some point, like, what do you see? You're seeing the same thing that Jimbo saw when Haynes King was throwing like a kid off a Disney sports movie. Like, I don't know what you guys are looking at.
Finally, Jake, before we get you out of here, we got to talk about the Music City Bowl, man, the Auburn Tigers. Please tell me that Auburn is going out and getting the quarterback. We don't have to talk about it. Again, there's some of these games where you can tell that maybe the Liberty – You can tell one of the teams maybe isn't quite that interested in, and give Maryland credit, by the way. I think Mike Locksley's actually got a really good team. Maryland was sneaky good this year, but and I don't think, a win or loss in the bowl game. I think year one of the Hugh Freeze era, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say it was maybe success is too strong of a word. I mean, I thought getting to a bowl game in year one would be a good year, but what's the mood now, would you say? Has it changed drastically after the bowl game amongst Auburn fans and outlook going into year 2 now for them?
Well, I mean, you look at recruiting. You obviously had a big signing day. You look at Auburn's class, especially in that wide receiver group. There was a lot of people that were happy in that bowl game was just a dud. So, yeah, it's going to bring people down. You lose that momentum. He didn't show up. Like, I think he's still trimming the fat in that locker room, which takes time. It takes time. And sometimes, I wouldn't even say Auburn was average on ever. They were below average. That was a game where one team wanted to be there. I mean, you let Ed Sheeran at quarterback for Maryland come out there and bully you for the 2 straight drives while he's singing about a photograph or something all the way down the field. But it was like that the whole game. It's just this Auburn team, you obviously got to have the players to be able to win. We know that. But they've got to develop a clutch gene. Like, by bringing in good players, confident guys, that kind of takes care of itself. But Auburn's got a bad problem right now. If there's a way, it's like Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. Like for Auburn, it's Auburn's law. If there's a chance to screw up a golden opportunity, best believe we're going to blow it. And you've got to get that out of you. Like, you get that out by getting bad players away. And I think bad players aren't just guys who aren't good on the field, aren't as good as who they're playing against. It's the guys who are locker room cancers. Those are the guys that are program killers. So I think Auburn's going to continue to get rid of those guys. And look, I mean, Phil Montgomery, if you were going to rob Auburn, there's a lot of banks. You could have made this a lot quicker, instead of doing what you're doing as the OC. I mean, Hugh Freeze talked about how he was really involved in recruiting and not involved in the game planning. Well, brother, I'd start getting involved in the game planning, because that was an absolute sickening disaster from Auburn. But you got to give Maryland credit. They wanted to be there. They were the more mature team. They had more pride in what was on the front of their jersey, and it showed.
Do you want Auburn to go get a quarterback, Jake?
If he's out there, yeah. I don't trust Peyton Thorne. And listen, Auburn has problems outside of Peyton Thorne. It's not just Peyton Thorne. I just don't. This guy doesn't run well enough to throw as bad as he does. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Nick Marshall wasn't the greatest passer of all time, but he was so electric running, everybody's just scared to death. So he got like automatic opportunities. Look, I'm sure Peyton Thorne's a great guy. He seems like a great guy, right? It's like somebody you'd want your daughter to marry. I just don't want him playing quarterback at Auburn. I don't trust him. I just can see it in him. I just don't trust him. And you're very average at both things. Like he needs a lot of help around him, right? To be able to have a chance to beat anybody like of substance. Not the teams you're supposed to beat. Peyton Thorne's going to beat most of the teams he's supposed to beat. But would I take Diego Pavia at New Mexico State over him? Probably. I think that kid's got some more dog in him. I just think Peyton Thorne is like a great coach. One sentence, like you're a bobblehead quarterback. Just it's on the sidelines. That's what he is right there.
Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Jake, one last thing, and I promise I'll get you out of here. I know you guys will have a lot of coverage on Crain and Company for the College Football National Championship. Your thoughts on this ball game, not necessarily from the schematic side or even a prediction, but just from your interest level in the ball game. First time since 2014, we do not have, or I guess first time ever, we don't have an SEC team in the final. Michigan-Washington's a little bit different flavor than we're used to. Your thoughts on the intrigue level, and I guess what intrigues you most about this matchup?
Well, man, I haven't been excited about as much about a Battle of the North since Game of Thrones. I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting matchup, man. I think you got two experienced teams that go about it different ways. I love seeing stylistically, the way it matches up. Like you have a team that's more downhill, right? That's more heavier personnel against a team that likes to spread it out, that passes the run, but can be physical. And then they're both old. So I think it's a fantastic matchup, man. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I love football in general, but something's got to give here, man. Something's got to give. I think it's going to come down to Michigan's ability to be able to run the ball and keep Michael Penix on the sideline, which, again, I think they can do, right? I think they can do that against this Washington team. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to be covering it all week. We previewed it today, recapped the games. Kind of went through the other bowl games as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's the biggest game all year. Of course, we're going to be looking forward to it. We're actually going to live stream it on Monday from the studio. So I'm excited about that.
Very good. Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Jake, always a pleasure, my friend. Happy New Year to you, by the way, and looking forward to many more electric conversations with you in 2024, man. You guys keep it the good work.
Oh, you too, man. Congrats on the new look. It's fantastic, and really excited for you and excited to join you, man. Good luck. Good luck to the team, the fans of Washington and Michigan. If you're out there, and I know South Carolina too. We'll see with Shane Beamer. It should be interesting. Jake, I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon. See ya. Yeah, man. Great stuff, guys. Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Always a pleasure chatting with him. That being said, guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we begin to break down these bowl games. We'll start, of course, with the college football playoff. Alabama and Michigan, Texas and Washington. My full breakdowns, thoughts, takeaways from those games. All that and much more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Daniel Canella has some feedback on the commercial breaks. Daniel, I can tell you this. They are all exactly 5 minutes long, which is exactly how we used to do commercial breaks. So they've always been 5 minutes. They always will be 5 minutes. And so we have I'd say 5 to 6 commercial breaks per show. So which, for a 2-hour show isn't all that bad. But I appreciate the feedback on it. Again, want to say thank you to our business partners, our sponsors, and appreciate you all for tuning in. Also, guys, want to say thank you yet again, our good friend Jake Crain of Crain & Company. Really good stuff, man. It's always an electric conversation. Excited for Jake to be a weekly guest on SEC Unfiltered Live yet again. I know right now We have Jake Crain of Crain and Company, Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate, and Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Those are the guys right now that we do have locked in as weekly guests here on SEC Unfiltered Live. And guys, do not forget, we're live every single day, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. With that being said, guys, we're talking all things college football playoff. We start with the Rose Bowl as Alabama falls to Michigan 27-20 in what was an absolute thriller of a game. The overtime win for the Michigan Wolverines. And guys, I want to go ahead and get this out of the way and start with this because this game was lost for Alabama for many reasons outside of just the final play call. Let's go ahead and get that out there, right? The final play call was not the reason that Alabama lost the football game. But of course, with it being the last play of the game, it is the one that's going to be highlighted, the one that's going to be talked about. And that's why I want to go ahead and get this out of the way and get my thoughts out here. What I think is really interesting, right? Immediately after that happened, you had tons of people go on social media. And I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about friends of the show, right? Our good friend J.D. Pickell of On3, Adam Brenneman. You had others go out there and go on record and say, wait, guys, the play call wasn't all that bad. This was an RPO where Jalen Milroe had the run-pass option. He had his running back swinging out, right? He could have thrown the ball, but the bad snap is what caused Jalen Milroe to, quote-unquote, panic and just drive straight into the offensive line for no gain, thus ending the game. Then after the game, you listen to Nick Saban. He was asked, of course, about this play call. And he went on record and said that it was a quarterback run. It was not executed well. It was not blocked well. He even went as far as to say, we had a bunch of 2-point plays in the playbook just in case for this game. We ran one of those 2-point plays. So Nick Saban goes on record and says it was a quarterback power. It was a quarterback draw. It was not an RPO. Now, granted, he didn't say those exact words, but effectively said the play call was for Jalen Milroe to run it up the gut. So whether you agree with guys like J.D. Pickell or Adam Brenneman, or maybe they've changed their stance on it, or you agree with literally what's coming out of Nick Saban's mouth, whether you think he was protecting his quarterback or protecting his OC, whatever he may have been doing, either way, that final play call, I understand it to be a quarterback power. That's what it looked like. That's what Nick Saban himself said it was. And so to say that last play call was questionable is putting it kindly. Now, you go back and look at the play, guys. Actually, if Jalen Milroe gets a good snap, which we're going to talk about that more in just a second, because it was sort of, that play was kind of a microcosm of the things that haunted Alabama in that football game. Lack of execution, doing the little things right. You go back and look at the play, though. If Jalen Milroe gets a good snap, he's able to see the field, read the defense, he's actually got a little bit of a lane to the left side. Maybe he has a chance to score on that play. But Nick Saban went on record, wasn't executed well. We didn't do a good job in that play. And a questionable play call, guys, to say the very, very least, especially in a game in which Michigan was, for the most part, dominating Alabama in the trenches, right? But that one play, like I mentioned, that one play is not why Alabama lost this football game. First things first, guys, it was a great game, right? I mean, the setting was fantastic. We knew it would be in the Rose Bowl. To see it was a helmet game, Bama and Michigan, two historical programs, two of the best programs in college football history. And I think what was so impressive, because you got to give an incredible amount of props to Michigan, right? I think most folks were doubting them coming in this game. They've been mocked. They've been belittled all season long for the off the field stuff. Jim Harbaugh's been suspended. The cheating scandal. The stealing signs. What have you? I mean, they have been berated at every turn. You know what it really reminds me of, guys? This Michigan Wolverines team. It's like the Houston Astros in the major leagues, right? It's like the Houston Astros. Like, they're really good. They don't need to cheat. But the fact that they did, and then all the things that happened, Jim Harbaugh saying this is America's team for the way they've responded, calling Michigan America's team, like there's been so much that took place throughout the year. They obviously used that as fuel to the fire and play with that chip on their shoulder. But you've got to give a lot of credit for what Michigan did last night in that football game, right? Like, they are every bit legitimate. They are every bit deserving of being in the national championship. What was so impressive, what Michigan did, the special teams blunders that almost cost them on multiple occasions, especially there at the end of the game, guys. You have a muff punt. The kid recovers at the 1 yard line, which that was an incredible play in its own right. The fact he's able to recover that, not go into the end zone, really saved the game there for Michigan. But, I mean, guys, they had a botched extra point. They had a muffed punt that led to a touchdown for Alabama. They had a missed field goal. They had that near disaster at the very end, and still Michigan is able to overcome it. I think what really surprised me, guys, it's one of those things you just never get used to seeing, right? Alabama was suspect in the trenches all year long. I mean, they closed out the year, guys. They gave up 6 sacks in that game yesterday. 44 total sacks surrendered, guys. That's the most an Alabama football team has given up in 35 seasons. Like, to say that Alabama was historically bad on the offensive line this year, that's not over-exaggerating. It's factual, right? But it's something I just never got used to it. I never got used to, I just always expected, okay, Alabama's good in the trenches. They're Alabama. And especially after you watched them, what they did against Georgia, thought handled a really talented, one of the best in all of college football, handled their defensive front, right? So to see Michigan just flat out whip Alabama up front, both sides of the football, by the way, both sides of the football. Bama had some success, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, when you look at who won the battle in the trenches, more often than not, it was the Michigan Wolverines, and that even came down to the final play, where it was a play in the trenches, fittingly enough, and Michigan had the upper hand. You look at the play of Jalen Milroe, guys, and you look at these numbers. They're uninspiring. Let's call it for what it is. They're uninspiring. 16 of 23 through the air, 116. Didn't turn it over. No picks, right? Had the fumble, costly fumble. Credit to Alabama's defense for standing tall there, and I think that was the drive where Michigan missed the field goal. But just 16 of 23 for 116. Did run the football 21 times for 63 yards. Obviously, guys, his legs were a difference maker in that football game. But Jalen Milroe, for all the growth that he showed this year, and I thought the game plan, you heard Jake Crain in the last segment talk about the game plan. It felt like it was somewhat questionable in that first half. Like, they wanted to prove that Jalen Milroe was a good thrower of the football and could throw it all over the yard, and they kind of got away from what made them successful down the stretch. But Jalen Milroe, guys, when I look at Milroe this season, he was solid. He was a great athlete. He was an okay quarterback. Great athlete, okay quarterback. When he stepped foot on the field, he's the best athlete or one of the best athletes on the field. But is he an elite quarterback? I don't think so. And Bama was able to get away with that in every single game practically in the regular season, right? When they're just so much more vastly talented than the opponent, than the competition. But you look at a game like this, where it's much more evenly matched, and even that other side's got the advantage in some areas, you got to have that guy under center. And again, I'm not pinning the loss on Jalen Milroe specifically. I'm not, because I think the reason Alabama lost this football game was their inability to win consistently in the trenches. Their inability to do the little things right. Guys, it is literally game 14 of the season. And you cannot snap the football to your quarterback. How does Alabama not have a center that can snap the damn football to the chest of the quarterback? How do they not have that guy? How is that happening in game number 14? That was baffling to watch. That was baffling to see. These are Pop Warner elementary things that Alabama is struggling with. And neither team, by the way, guys, neither team was perfect in that football game. Neither team was perfect. Michigan made a slew of mistakes, as we've already mentioned. But Alabama, with those critical errors, you go to the second half. I'm sitting there, guys, watching the game, obviously thinking to myself, okay, this is where Bama's going to turn it on. It felt like the game was exactly where Nick Saban and Alabama wanted it to be, right? They're going to turn it on. The cream's going to rise to the top. And it looks like that was going to happen. That drive by Michigan in the game, man, that was legacy stuff. I mean, that was stuff legends are made of, going for it there on fourth down and getting it with a great play call. J.J. McCarthy with the legacy drive. Blake Corum is a certified dude, by the way. Certified dude, right? But it shocked me to see Alabama kill themselves with these little mistakes, and you were playing a Michigan team that was good enough to take advantage of your mistakes. Guys, watching that game, though, I'll tell you this. We've heard this a lot, right? This has been Nick Saban's best coaching job to date. We've heard that a lot. Watching the game last night, it only reaffirmed that to me, because the reality is this. This Alabama team this year was very talented, right? That goes without saying. But this team had holes. This team had serious deficiencies across the board. And they had deficiencies where you can't afford to have deficiencies and be elite. And that's the line of scrimmage. That's the offensive line specifically, again, surrendering 44 sacks this year. The fact that Alabama got as far as they did, SEC champions, making an appearance in the college football playoff with a chance to beat Michigan. The fact that Alabama got that far. I'm not sitting here telling Alabama fans they should be happy with the season because, hey, it's win it all or bust in Tuscaloosa, and I respect the hell out of it, as it should be. But with that team, with that group of players, with the holes that you very obviously had, and you look at and you rank the best teams of Nick Saban's Alabama tenure, like, where would this one rank? Where would this one rank? So to see what Nick Saban and that coaching staff did with that group, I think it reaffirms this was 100% Nick Saban's best coaching job to date. And guys, again, simply put in this ball game, Michigan was just a better team. You watch this game, if I would have just told you the score and I would have said, okay, guys, don't watch the game, don't look at any stats. Michigan won 27-20 in overtime. What's your reaction? The reaction from most probably would have been, Michigan probably won by some fluke, or the refs did this, or Bama played their worst game and Michigan played their best and Michigan lucked up and won. Like, you would have probably thought that's what happened. That's not what happened, guys. Michigan was just a better football team because Michigan made just as many mistakes as Alabama did. Where Bama's a little bit more costly, that's up for debate. But Michigan was just a better football team. And sometimes, guys, you just got to tip your cap. And I know we don't want to give Michigan credit because of the off-field stuff, because of Jim Harbaugh and the stealing signs and the cheating. And it feels like we're watching the college football version of the Houston Astros, where it's like, we all know they're good. They've got great players, but it's an icky feeling, the fact that Michigan may win it all. But guys, the fact of the matter is this: you got to tip your cap because Michigan was the better football team. They proved that on the field last night. And for Alabama, I think they're going to be fine, guys. They're going to be great next year. They got Jalen Milroe back. I don't think Saban's nearing retirement, but after you lose a game like that, you fall short of expectations in Tuscaloosa. A lot of questions linger. And now Michigan moves on to play for the ultimate prize. Guys, we move to the other college football playoff matchup, the Sugar Bowl. Texas falling to the Washington Huskies. Final score, 37-31 in this one. Guys, I got to start. Michael Penix Jr., certified dude. This guy is a wizard back there. I said it weeks ago. Jaden Daniels deserved to win the Heisman Trophy. I think it was the right pick. But I tell you, and you know what's a shame? What's a shame is we didn't get to see Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. go head-to-head and duke it out in a ballgame. It's a shame Jaden Daniels' defense did not allow him that opportunity. But admittedly, guys, I had not watched a ton of Washington football this season, right? Hadn't watched a ton of it. Sitting down and watching Michael Penix Jr. work, watching Michael Penix Jr., I mean, there's not a throw he can't make. There's not a window he can't fit it in. There's not a play on a football field he cannot make. Texas was not even able to get him down one time. And, was the pass rush not there for Texas? Was Texas not as good as they needed to be up front? I think that's a fair take, but also you got to give a lot of credit to Penix, man. There were many times a lesser quarterback or a guy with, the pocket awareness, not having the pocket awareness like a guy like Penix has, or not having the speed, the agility, the quickness, what have you. I think Texas gets the quarterback down 2 or 3 times. The way Michael Penix Jr. was able to work in the pocket, maneuver, move around, create plays, all the different arm angles he's throwing at. I mean, it was truly fun to watch. I mean, it's just that dude, a guy like that's going to give you an opportunity to win every single game. And we knew, guys, this is going to be a back and forth affair, offensive shootout, and it delivered, I thought, certainly. But you look at Texas, guys, that sleepy third quarter. I mean, that was a game where it felt like you needed to score on nearly every single possession. Texas obviously shut out in that third quarter. That was the difference in the football game, guys. 21-21 at half. Washington with some great second half adjustments. They come out, outscore Texas 10-0 in the third quarter. And that was all she wrote. Texas obviously with the opportunity right there at the end, could have thrown the game-winning touchdown pass. And again, the game lived up to the hype, right, guys? For the first time, it feels like in forever, we got 2 great semifinal games. My biggest takeaway, though, guys, from this game, and again, Texas had no answer defensively, about 400 passing yards, I believe it was. The official stats here, again, Penix was special in this one. 29 of 38, 430 yards. 430 yards for Michael Penix Jr. I mean, that is insane. Those numbers are crazy. His receivers, O'Dunes, Polk, Westover, making big plays all night long. McMillan as well, making big plays all night long. Had enough of a running game with over 100 yards rushing for the Huskies. But it all begins and ends with Michael Penix Jr. I mean, what we watched last night, guys, that kid is really, really special. And I will say this, guys. I did not give Washington enough credit, flat out. I'm here to own up to it. I didn't give them enough credit. I thought, okay, Penix is a nice story. He's played well Pac-12. Okay, we'll see how he fares against a physical Texas defense. I really thought the physicality of Texas was going to be able to stand up to Michael Penix Jr. and limit him on some things. And no, they never had an answer. And so a game that we expected guys to go back and forth on the offensive side of the football, an offensive shootout, it lived up to that hype, of course, with Washington out-dueling the Longhorns. And we're going to talk about this, guys, more tomorrow. I think it'll be a fun conversation in regards to analyzing where we stand right now with Texas and Oklahoma now, right? That was their last game, respective games, not being members of the SEC. My thoughts on them in regards to just where they sit entering SEC play. But, I think Texas is going to be fine. We have the conversation, is Texas back? Did they need to win it all to be back? I think having this type of season, even though you didn't win the semi, even though you didn't go to the national title, Texas being a premier program and a prominent program, I'm willing to go on record and say that I think for the most part they're back. We're really going to get the answer next year. Texas goes and wins double-digit games again, and they're back in the playoff. Okay, Texas is back. They're back as one of the premier programs in college football. This season, great first step towards that. But a great game, guys. The Sugar Bowl lived up to all the hype. Michael Penix Jr., certified freaking dude who can make all the throws, fit it in all the windows. He is an absolute magician. Nickname him Merlin back there in the pocket. And it is going to be an electric game watching him take on that Michigan defense. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll break down both the ReliaQuest Bowl and the Citrus Bowl as both LSU and Tennessee found their way to big wins yesterday. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas's Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, January the 2nd. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Like I mentioned before, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well, which is daily. Also, guys, the podcast drops daily, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can find us there at SEC Unfiltered. And for everything else, guys, of course, we are on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you get your content. You can find us there. Also, guys, check out secunfiltered.com. Much more coming on that front in regards to articles, content, etc. We are actually boosting our team, adding content contributors now that we are into the new year. So be sure you stay tuned to secunfiltered.com. It'll be content bleeding out the eyeballs. Also, guys, you may have saw yesterday our good friend Dave Shoemate took over the SEC Unfiltered airways for a while. That's going to become more common. We are going to add shows to our SEC Unfiltered network, Dave's show being one of those. He'll probably go live on our airwaves once a week. But again, guys, we're going to have a full content library. So it's going to be much more than just yours truly with SEC Unfiltered Live. We will have much more to feature at different times of the day throughout the weeks, if you will. So again, stay tuned for all that, guys, as we continue to build out and scale and grow, and really excited for 2024 and what it holds for us all. That being mentioned, guys, let's go ahead and keep the conversation rolling, breaking down these final two bowl games. It's crazy. College football is basically over, but we got some games to talk about. The ReliaQuest Bowl, LSU. They found a way yet again to overcome that horrific defense, which again, I talk about things I'm not used to seeing, right? Alabama struggling in the offensive line. LSU being this bad defensively against a Wisconsin team that, guys, make no mistake, they were not an offensive juggernaut this year. But if you need help on the offensive side, if you need a confidence boost, the LSU defense is there to help you out. But either way, hey, the Bayou Bengals, the bottom line is this. They got the win, 35-31, back-to-back 10-win seasons in the first 2 years of the Brian Kelly era. And guys, as I mentioned, winning 10 games with that defense, I feel like it's low-key a miracle. I mean, really, truly, when you look at how bad LSU was defensively this year, and you knew, right? You knew that the offense was going to have a really, really big day. You knew that LSU more than likely was going to struggle in this football game because they've struggled against everyone. I mean, guys, Tanner Mordecai for Wisconsin, 27 of 40, 378 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns on the day. Wisconsin also, guys, they ran for 128 yards. Jackson Acker leading the way, 14 for 86. He had a touchdown in this game. Cade Yakimelli, 7 for 45. Will Pauling out there on the outside, 8 for 143 and 2 touchdowns. Bryson Green, 7 for 105 and a touchdown as well. So Wisconsin was clicking, LSU was clicking. This is one of the best games, though, of bowl season. This game was so wildly entertaining, so much fun, which is all we really ask and all we really expect from these games. Great job by LSU. Let me say that. That was a gritty, gutsy win by the Tigers, right? We talk all the time, what's the motivation factor? You know, what does the team want to be there? And, you know, your quarterback had opted out and Jaden Daniels. And, guys, LSU certainly fell short of their goals and their expectations. I mean, I think folks in Baton Rouge were thinking national championship before the season. So for LSU to show up and play that way and fight to the end and find a way to win the ball game to get to 10 wins, give all the credit in the world to Brian Kelly, the culture he's built, that entire coaching staff and that football team as a whole. But guys, you look at LSU, and what's really cool about some of these bowl games, a lot of these bowl games, is because of opt-outs, because of guys declaring for the NFL draft, you have guys that have been waiting in the wings, waiting for their opportunity, that get an opportunity. And sometimes they take advantage of that opportunity. That's exactly what you saw Garrett Nussmeier do. 31 for 45, 395 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have the 1 interception. But Garrett Nussmeier, guys, in my mind, showed me he's ready to be the dude for LSU next year. Now, we've seen Nussmeier have some bright spots and kind of have some up and down, if you will. So I think consistency for Garrett Nussmeier, that's the thing I most want to see in 2024. But you look at that performance yesterday. That, to me, looked like a surefire signal caller, a surefire thing at the quarterback position for LSU. I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to phrase that, but you got to be encouraged if you're a fan of the Bayou Bengals out of what Nussmeier showed you guys throwing for just under 400 yards. I was really, really impressed. Also, guys, you had a brand new OC in this game. You know, there was a lot of change at quarterback, the offensive play calling, both Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton calling the plays in this game. Hankton, I think, being the passing game coordinator. They did a great job. It's going to be interesting to see what direction Brian Kelly goes with his OC. But all in all, a massive success on the offensive side. Josh Williams, I thought, looked good at running back, 12 for 51. He led the way. Brian Thomas Jr. was a certified dude, a stud, 8 for 98 and 2 touchdowns. Guys, I think this is interesting. I want to bring this up. It's sort of a side note, if you will, in this game. But Malik Neighbors, you know, playing for the record, I was told by LSU folks that he was always only going to play the first half of this game. Got the record and then opted out mid-game. I thought that was a really interesting move. But I want to push back on some of the things I saw yesterday, because I saw some folks saying that, you know, if I was his teammate, I wouldn't respect him. Like, he's this, he's that. I disagree. He's a quitter. Guys, I think college football fans have to get over that. I think we're to a point now, guys, where opting out is so common and it's so normalized and it's so expected at this point. Like, I just don't, I think dying on the hill of calling kids quitters, do it if you like, but you're just wasting your breath, because opt-outs aren't going anywhere. And so if Malik Neighbors, if he had an agreement to say, hey, you know what, coach, I want to get the record, but once I do, I'm done. When you look at everything Malik Neighbors has done for LSU, I feel like if you're one of those people criticizing him and calling him a quitter and calling him this and that, I think you're a little bit misguided in that judgment. I'll just say that. So that was interesting, though. I've never heard of or never seen, I don't think, a player opt out mid-game. But, you know, again, after what Malik Neighbors has done for LSU, you get the record. Hey, you got an NFL future to protect. And I know he said he's not sure, but I'd be stunned if Malik Neighbors did not go pro. But it makes sense. He gets the receiving record for LSU, which, I mean, guys, is really impressive in its own right. And made a business decision. Best for him, guys. Back to the offensive side. Again, you knew LSU was going to have to overcome the defense struggle, and they've got to get that fixed going into next season. If they haven't fired the defensive coordinator yesterday, I don't know what's going on in Baton Rouge. But the razzle-dazzle offensively, I thought you saw LSU push all the right buttons. You know, of course, you got a ton of playmakers to work with, but, you know, the play with Harold Perkins scoring a touchdown. And, again, I just think it's really interesting. I wonder, what direction will LSU go offensively, right? Do they promote Joe Sloan, who was the quarterback's coach? Do they promote Cortez Hankton, who was the passing game coordinator? Do they keep both guys around? Does Brian Kelly go out and get an outside coach, somebody else to be the offensive coordinator? You know, because you're going to have to score yet again in 2024. Like, I think, I don't know how much you can really expect. How big of a jump can you expect from the LSU defense? Although they are very talented, so I would expect them to be much better next year. I just wonder what direction LSU goes on the offensive side. But, guys, all in all, like I mentioned, a gritty, gutsy win, I thought, for LSU. Get back-to-back 10-win seasons to kick off the Brian Kelly era. And while it was a season that fell short of expectations, I know many LSU fans will say overall the season was a disappointment. I thought that was a great job. Garrett Nussmeier obviously being the star, the performance he had. And I think it's something where, again, these kind of bowl games that they don't have college football playoff implications, or, you know, they are quote unquote meaningless. but they serve as great opportunities for guys who have been waiting in the wings, waiting their turn, and they can provide a lot of promise for the future. If those guys seize the opportunity, I think that's what you saw in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And if you're an LSU fan, you got to be thrilled about the future with Garrett Nussmeier under center. Guys, final bowl game of SEC bowl season. The final one we're going to hit on, the Citrus Bowl, as Tennessee just took Iowa to the freaking woodshed, folks. I mean, my goodness. An absolute blowout. You know, I said, hey, the easiest bet of bowl season, the under 36.5. Under 36.5 in the Citrus Bowl. Hammer it. It's free money. Well, that one came down to the wire. Tennessee wins this game 35-0. I was sitting there sweating, man. I was sweating for the under. But Iowa in just true Iowa form can't muster a single point. Let me start there too, guys, because, again, admittedly, I haven't sat down and watched a ton of Iowa football this year, right? It's hard for me to believe how bad Iowa was on offense this year. And like, I don't know if we'll ever see a team win 10 games and be that bad offensively. Like that, I loved the graphic they showed in the telecast of where Iowa ranks in total offense and the records of the teams surrounding them, right? So, like, they were, like, ranked, like, 130th. I think there were only, like, 2 or 3 teams, you know, behind them. And, you know, they showed the one team ahead of them. These were teams that won, like, 2 or 3 games this year, right? And then you got Iowa, who averaged 16 points per game this year, who won 10 football games. I mean, it's hard to believe. It's really, truly, and I don't know whether to label them the best 10-win team that we've ever seen with that defense or the worst 10-win team with that offense. Either way, Tennessee didn't give a damn either way. And you know who else didn't? Nico Iamaleava let the Heisman hype begin in Knoxville. Okay, maybe that's a little bit over the top. But either way, Nico Iamaleava, first start, so far, so good. I thought he looked really good, guys. 12-19, 151, a touchdown through the air. With his legs, I thought was where he made one of the biggest differences, though. 15-27, 3 rushing touchdowns. Tennessee fans, you should be very, very excited for what you saw from Nico Iamaleava. And you don't need me to tell you that. But here's the thing. Nico was in a great system. I thought the most impressive thing, too, guys, was the poise, right? He was fully under control. It doesn't look like there's any issues with, you know, does he have the offense grasp or anything? That was totally fine. So he looked like the field general out there. He looked like he was in control. But here's the thing, guys. Nico was in a great system. He's got the arm. He can make all the throws. He's got the poise. And his legs, as you saw yesterday, are a difference maker. An absolute difference maker. Josh Heupel's already shown, guys. I mean, he took Joe Milton. Who we all know the up and down career that Milton's had. He took Joe Milton. Milton had a solid year. Probably played above his talent level. What do you think he's going to do with Nico? The guy can run. He can throw. You know, the throwing ability wasn't necessarily on display a ton in that game yesterday. I don't think it had to be. And I think that'll be the question probably going into the 2024 season is, okay, is he an elite passer? Does he have the passing capabilities to go with the athleticism? Because he's a freakish athlete. I mean, no doubt, he's a freakish athlete, right? I think, though, as important as Nico is, watching that game yesterday, guys, what makes Tennessee clicks running the football. And they did that well yesterday. They ran the football, guys, 232 yards rushing in this football game. I know they're replacing a lot at the running back position, which they didn't have those guys yesterday, and they still ran for over 200 yards. That's where it begins and ends for Tennessee, right, guys? I mean, Tennessee, to have a successful offense, to run that tempo, that up-tempo, they need to run the football. They need to run the football well. So as important as Nico is, as important as QB1 is for Tennessee, Tennessee's success is going to continue to rely on that run game in 2024. So as long as they have that, I think Nico is going to be just fine, guys. I think Nico is going to flourish. I think Nico is going to be a massive success. I think Tennessee has got their dude under center, make no mistake. You look back at this game, guys, again, 35-0. You know, we talk so much about the Iowa defense coming in the game. How about the pure domination by Tennessee's defense? Their defense ain't too shabby either. Now, again, Iowa, that's got to be one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in college football. I mean, that quarterback, it was crazy. It looked like when you play someone on NCAA football and they've never played before and they're just pressing buttons, or not even really, they're not even pressing buttons. They're just kind of holding the controller, just kind of like, what do I do? Where do I go? What does this button do? What does that button do? I mean, there was a play, Iowa's quarterback rolls out, and a Tennessee guy is just bearing down on him. There's no way he didn't see him. And quarterback doesn't throw it away. He doesn't. It was like playing some play, and you don't know what the throwaway button is. And you're trying to press different buttons, and nothing's happening. And he just, boom, takes a sack. I mean, Iowa, just abysmal offensively. But either way, Tennessee's defense, they were relentless yesterday. That front seven was incredible. Did a great job in all facets. And the guys, at the end of the day, the game was pure domination by Tennessee. And anytime you win a game like that, guys, you get the 9 wins. I mean, it's a huge momentum boost going into the offseason. But the real boost for Tennessee was Nico Iamaleava. I think it's safe to say, watching that game yesterday, Tennessee's got their quarterback of the future. The athleticism, the arm, the poise, and Nico is in a great system to maximize his skill set. And I think he's going to give Tennessee a great opportunity next year to be a force to be reckoned with in the SEC. But all in all, guys, a great Citrus Bowl win for the Tennessee Volunteers, and great momentum now they carry into year 4 of Josh Heupel. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, I want to officially hear from you. Our daily mailbag segment gets going. We take your questions, your comments, and your voicemails here on this Tuesday. All that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. Let me once again wish you guys a happy new year. Hope you're having a great start to the 2024 calendar year, guys. With that being said, we have officially entered our daily mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails, the final 20 minutes or so of the show. Again, you can call 843-790-3377. You can text that number if you want to get your questions in, or you can comment on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you are checking us out. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and kick it off. We got a couple voicemails to get into.
Yeah. Do you think Judkins is going to leave Ole Miss and go to Alabama? Yes or no?
Appreciate the call, my friend. Quinshon Judkins, is he going to leave Ole Miss and go to Alabama? I've heard nothing of the sort. I would be stunned if that happened. I mean, it's you always listen to a call when Nick Saban makes it, but I mean, I think Quinshon Judkins in a pretty good situation at Ole Miss. But you know what, my friend, in this transfer portal NIL world, I guess nothing would shock me, but that would surprise me if Quinshon Judkins up and left. Again, I think he's in a great situation at Ole Miss right now. Guys, let's jump to our next voicemail here.
Hey, Chris, it's John Edwards. I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of portal thoughts. I think I just want to get your thoughts on Will Rogers, a former Mississippi State quarterback going to Washington. I think that fits his skill set really well. And I want to get your thoughts on KJ Jefferson going to Central Florida. I actually like that pickup for Central Florida. All right, thanks very much.
John Edward, I appreciate the call, my friend. We'll start Will Rogers, Mississippi State quarterback who committed to Washington. And I think he's a great fit in that system. I mean, guys, you look at Michael Penix Jr. and sort of playing that gunslinger type of role. And maybe that's not a great way to describe Penix Jr. because he's a great quarterback, right? But I mean, it just feels like it fits what Will Rogers can do and what he wants to do and the type of style he wants to play, kind of go back there and just let it rip and let it work. And I think Will Rogers can put up some huge numbers in that Washington offense. So I think a great fit there. And then KJ Jefferson going to Central Florida. I'm surprised that KJ didn't land somewhere bigger, honestly. I'm very intrigued to see what he does down there with Gus Malzahn. I mean, I think that could be a lot of fun. I'm surprised KJ didn't go somewhere bigger. But to be fair, by the way, I say that UCF's in the Big 12. So I keep thinking about UCF like they're still like Conference USA or something like that. Like they're literally in the Big 12. So yeah, I'm excited to see what KJ can do. And I mean, I think for UCF, you got to look at this as a huge pickup, right? You got to look at this as just a massive pickup for sure. All right, let's get into your comments here. Let's see. Going back to earlier in the show, I think I saw John Eber say this was the worst bowl season ever. I couldn't disagree more. I genuinely couldn't. And I don't know how you would even gauge that. I see my guy, Blake, AYS Sports, was in here earlier saying, ask Jake, does that sweatshirt come in big and tall sizes? Blake, I appreciate you if he's still in here. I appreciate Blake jumping in here, though. Austin Gregory says, best 2 college football playoff games we've ever had. Both came down to the final play. Great games. Absolutely great games, man. Truly. He continues, Michigan beat Alabama by doing what Bama has always done to the opposing teams, keening in on their offensive weakness and never straying. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to put it, Austin, is that Michigan did to Bama what Bama typically does to other teams. I think that's a great way to put it. So, again, it was weird. It was weird to watch it unfold that way. It was weird to watch it unfold that way. We're just not used to seeing like Alabama getting dominated in the trenches, just getting dominated. That's not something I know I'm not used to seeing. So, let's see. Bruin Nation up in here with the popcorn. What's up, man? Appreciate you. Appreciate you tuning in. Travi, what's going on? Happy New Year to you, my friend. Appreciate it. Happy New Year to you. Austin Gregory, the Heisman's given out prior to bowl games. Should the Heisman only take into account the regular season, or should the postseason also be considered? Your thoughts? For what it's worth, I'd still vote for Daniels. Austin, I think because of the volatility of bowl season, I think you have to give it out before that. I do, because Jaden Daniels, I don't think it would have changed his decision. I think he still would have opted out. Like, I just, when he weighed his NFL future, and I think he still would have opted out. So I think it would have been unfair for, let's just say, Jaden Daniels to not win the award because he didn't play in a bowl game. You know what I mean? So, no, I like when they give it out now. I think it makes the most sense. So, James Kendall says UGA's backups outscored FSU's backups in the third and the fourth quarters. Yeah, that was a butt whooping, man. That was a complete butt whooping. So, Big Wash says, you heard it here first, South Carolina will make the playoffs next year. Well, Big Wash, they'll need to win 10 games. So, basically what you're telling me is that South Carolina is going to win 10 games. So, DGD says, just going to leave this here. Them dogs is hell. They were, man. They were. That's and DGD, by the way, shout out to Bulldog Nation, all the Georgia fans that tuned into our take on the Orange Bowl. By the way, thank you all so much, by the way, for tuning in on YouTube, guys. We're doing some numbers on YouTube, and especially, like I mentioned, that those takeaways from the Orange Bowl, Georgia fans have voiced their support of it and have watched and consumed, and really appreciate you guys. Again, highly encourage you to subscribe and tune into more future videos. But them dogs were hell. You're absolutely right. Them dogs were absolutely hell. Absolutely hell. Billy Cotton says it's sad when you're watching a New Year's Day bowl and it's not sold out. Yeah. I mean, Billy, you're right. You're right. But, you know, for a team like LSU, I guess, you know, was making the ReliaQuest Bowl. Was that? I mean, that wasn't their ultimate goal, Billy Cotton. So, I mean, it's hit or miss, but I tell you this, man, I had a blast this bowl season. Had a blast watching all the games. So, let's see. Madison, no SEC team in the big game. That sucks. Yeah, it's weird. It is weird, man. It's an intriguing matchup for sure, though. Michigan, Washington, but it is a weird feel. So, Carolina Titan games are played on the field, not on paper. See Texas A&M's historic class. I hope Ole Miss flops big time. Well, good luck on that because they've got a really talented team coming back next year. So, Let's see. Tons of questions, guys. Appreciate you all being part of the show. This is the Daily Mailbag segment. Continue to leave us your questions, comments, voicemails as well. Justin says maybe they could see if Bo Nix wants to use his 10th year and come back to Auburn. No playing De Niro. Yep, we spoke on LSU in that last segment. Spoke on LSU. I thought a great win by LSU. Again, really gritty. And it's always nice when you can end your season on a high note like that, and especially with Garrett Nussmeier playing the way he did. I thought he was really impressive. Texter says, do you think the national champion will be more of Michigan stopping Penix or JJ trying to keep up with Michael Penix Jr.? Michigan's going to have to score. I think here's the scary thing. I thought Texas had the physicality up front and the dudes up front to give Washington some headaches and really pose some problems for them, and they just simply didn't do it, right? Didn't have it. So, I think Michigan's better in the trenches than Texas? Yes, I do, but I don't know, man. It's going to be hard to bet against Michael Penix Jr., and I'm really excited. We will talk about this game, guys. Somebody was asking, who do you cover more because there's no SEC team? We'll spend probably Friday breaking down the game, and I'll give my full preview and pick for the game, if you will. The last college football game of the season, of the 2023-2024 season, before we head into the quote-unquote off-season, which really, there's no off-season, man. There's no off-season in college football, SEC football especially, but it'll be the last game. So Friday is when I'll plan to – we'll do the full preview, breakdown, all that good stuff. But it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great game. Looking forward to watching it. So let's see. Bill says, I thought the national championship game was going to be Michigan against Texas. Yeah, I thought so. I actually thought it was going to be Bama in Texas. So I was completely wrong. John Edward, guest lineup will be, we had Jake Crain, of course, today. We've got Chris Marler tomorrow. We'll have Mark Ryan on Thursday. And then Friday is TBD. I think there's a good chance we might have our good friend Chris Doring back on. We've got some other conversations planned as well. So, John Edward, we are going to have weekly guests. We're also going to be very random with the guests as well that we'll pull on the show and talk ball with. But I believe we're going to have Chris Marler, Mark Ryan next 2 days. Those are locked in, I believe, for the most part. So, let's see. Just going through your questions. Fireball, did I hear it right that Clayton White, South Carolina defensive coordinator, got a contract extension? I've seen rumors of that, Fireball. I tell you, man, if that, I don't know, man. I don't want to over-exaggerate to it, but I tell you this, if no changes are made to South Carolina's coaching staff, it feels like Shane Beamer is holding the shovel to his own grave. The optics of it aren't great. They're not great. So we'll see. It's nothing but rumors. Certainly, guys, we will react to it if that is the case, and that is what's happening in Columbia. But yeah, I don't know. That'll be something if that is indeed the case. Brock says, for South Carolina, the measuring stick for success moving forward will be just to get to 6 wins and get to a bowl game. NIL and transfer portal has killed schools like South Carolina with limited NIL potential and a small regional fan base. Do you guys agree or disagree with Brock? I think he actually hits on some fair points. Brock, to your point, NIL was looked at this thing at one time that, oh, man, this gives us a new way. And this isn't just a South Carolina thing. A lot of schools that I think in the beginning were like, man, this gives us another opportunity to compete. Man, this is awesome. That now look at it like, wow, this is just another thing that my team has to overcome to be competitive. And I think for South Carolina, I think that's where they are. I think to insinuate otherwise is just disingenuous. I mean, I think South Carolina they're doing all they can. But it's just kind of another thing you have to worry about. It's another thing that makes winning difficult. That's what it is. It's another thing that makes winning difficult. Ruben Nation says that what worries him about Lenora Sellers, we were talking about Nico and the system and the scheme Josh Heupel has. He says, that's what worries me about Sellers. He's in a shit system with Dabble Loggins. He continues. Brewer Nation says, Lenoris has everything that Nico I can't even say the name. Iamaleava has, except a competent OC and a good system. I'll tell you this, Bruin Nation, and he continues. I just don't like his conservative play calling. Maybe it'll change with a different type of quarterback. Saw a lot of Satterfield in the last 4 games. I tell you what, though, Bruin Nation, watching these other teams, though, and you see a lot of former coaches that were at South Carolina. Watching these other teams, it makes me feel like more and more, Bruin Nation, that, like, makes sense of it for me, man. How does a coach struggle so mightily? Like, how does Mike Bobo struggle so mightily in Columbia and then go to Georgia and they got one of the best offenses in college football? You know? How does a coach like Travaris Robinson struggle so mightily at South Carolina coaching defense, and then he's on the coaching staff at Alabama? He's good enough for Alabama. How does that happen? Sometimes, Bruin Nation, you think to yourself, maybe it's a Jimmy's and Joe's thing. Maybe it is a Jimmy's and Joe's thing. Is it sometimes a coaching thing? Sure. But I don't know, man. Like, so you look at Dabble Loggins' scheme at South Carolina in year 1. Like, the offensive line was abysmal. I just don't know how many conclusions you can draw from Dabble Loggins in year 1 when the offensive line was so bad. So bad. John Edward says, really looking forward to Mississippi State and South Carolina on Saturday on the hardwood. Yes, so John Edward and everybody else, we will start talking some SEC basketball later this week. Lot to get into, man. Many, many great games. South Carolina's got a great opportunity at Colonial Life Arena against Mississippi State. You got Ole Miss, who I'm really pumped. They're 13-0. They put their perfect record on the line at Tennessee. We'll learn a lot about them. Florida, Kentucky's a fun matchup. Some other good ones in the SEC as well, guys. Really looking forward to conference play getting going, where we're going to really start to learn who is who. We're going to start to learn who is who in the SEC. Our good friend Bryce says, love the rebrand, brother. Can't wait to hop on. Bryce, can't wait to have you, my friend. On that note, I'll probably be in touch with you here very, very soon. Definitely would love to talk some LSU football and LSU sports with Bryce. And again, guys, back to LSU, I thought a really gritty, gutsy win in the ReliaQuest Bowl, and I think you got to love what you saw from Garrett Nussmeier. And I wonder now, again, what do they do on the offensive side in regards to the OC? Do they go out and get somebody else to be offensive coordinator? Do they hire from within, promote from within? But again, you got to love what you saw, Garrett Nussmeier. I think the offense is in a really good position under his leadership. And it's about more consistency, I think, for Garrett Nussmeier and for LSU on the offensive side, right? Because we've seen Nussmeier be up and down a little bit time to time, but what you saw in that bowl game, you got to feel really, really good about his potential under center going into 24. So Fire Vol says, hate this time of year. The longest wait until next year. Well, Fire Vol, buckle in, my friend. Hey, lock in, because we're going to keep the yucks coming here, my friend. This isn't just a football show. We're talking basketball. We're certainly talking baseball. Really pumped for it, man. So stick around. And Fire Vol, you know as well as I do, man, there's no such thing as the offseason when it comes to the SEC. And it's just, there's no offseason, right? There's no offseason. There's no offseason at all. So just stick around. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually really looking forward to basketball season, SEC basketball season getting underway. And obviously, guys, if you followed me for longer than 2 seconds, you know I am a huge baseball guy. Like, guys, I am so giddy. I am so giddy to cover SEC baseball. I am so giddy to cover SEC baseball as a whole. And, maybe we'll go to a couple series. Maybe we'll see a couple different venues. I know we talked about for football, we're going to do that for every single game. But, there's a couple that are really close. There's a couple that are really close that it'd be pretty easy to kind of slide over and check out some baseball and check out some cool environments, some cool venues, if you will. So just stay tuned for that. But it is crazy to think, though, man, the college football season is effectively, for the most part, over. The SEC season's over. The SEC football season's over. And on that note, guys, really fun. We got some really fun content upcoming over the next week or so. I may wait until after the national championship, or we could do it this week. But a segment of content, guys, will have way too early record predictions for the SEC in 2024. So we probably won't go game by game. But what we're going to do is, the SEC is going to be one big conference next year, right? Just 16 teams, just straight down, no east-west. We will probably drop a graphic and we'll probably go through and talk about it here on the show. It'll definitely be a segment of content. We'll do way too early record predictions based off what we know right now for each and every single team. So that'll be upcoming definitely within the next week or so, week and a half. It could be this week. It'll probably be next week, though, after the national title game. I think that's a really fun piece of content to roll out there. So, guys, we got content bleeding out of the eyeballs, truly. And again, I appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, following along on social media, following the show here, tuning into the live show. And guys, I'll tell you this. SEC Unfiltered just got launched over the last, week or so? Week and a half or so? I am having a blast. I mean, let me just say that. I'm having an absolute blast watching all these games, covering all these games. Guys, I can't wait to have so many great guests on the show and talk all things SEC and dive into these programs and react to everything taking place. I'm so pumped. Like I'm so fulfilled. I'm so happy. I'm having such a good time making content. And really, we just want to say thank you to each and every single one of you. And we're getting 2024 kicked off in style for sure. Let's see. Getting back into your questions. Justin commented this. If Clayton White is back, then Shane Beamer needs to be on the hot seat in 2024. Forget waiting until 2025. Whew. Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. And again, our good friend Jake Crain said this a couple weeks ago. It's the optics of it are not great because when you have a season like South Carolina did and you don't make any changes, effectively what you're saying is, okay, well, the season wasn't great, but what happened is it's okay. Because if it wasn't okay, you make changes. If it wasn't okay, you do something about it. And if you don't make any changes, it's like, well, it's fine. And this goes for every school, by the way, guys. Of course, it goes for every single team, right? I mean, LSU defensively. What is LSU doing? Not firing and hiring a new DC. What are they? We'll see, and we'll see, guys. I think over the next week or so, couple weeks, this whole month of January, you're going to see coaching staff shuffled. You're going to see different programs make moves. But, I mean, there's some out there that I think are very obvious, right? Like the defensive coordinator spots at both South Carolina and LSU. Both of those programs should be looking for new defensive coordinators. I just don't know how you can go into 2024 and look your fan base in the eye and say, we just felt like they were the best fit still. Like, I just don't see how you can do that. I just truly don't see how you can do that. So anyways, guys, again, I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Hope you guys enjoyed your New Year. Happy New Year to you all. What a great last couple days. What a fantastic semifinal. Both those games, both those college football playoff semifinal game, guys, were incredible. The national title is going to be electric. When you think about Michigan and Washington and what those two teams do, what they're both good at, both teams undefeated. And I'm someone, guys, I'm excited to think about that this time next year, we're going to be talking about an expanded playoff. I think I don't have the schedule pulled up in front of me, but I think the expanded playoff, like we're not going to have the national title game, guys, till like January 12th or something, or January 15th or something crazy like that. So we're going to have even longer, even more games to talk about, which I am a huge fan of. I'm sure we all are. So anyways, guys, hey, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. This was a blast, a lot of fun. We'll keep it rolling tomorrow, guys. We're going to start getting, as the days go by, we're going to start getting into more SEC basketball content, talking more basketball as conference play approaches. Really looking forward to that, guys. Going to be a ton of fun. In the meantime, guys, like I mentioned, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out there. Those drop daily as well. And, of course, guys, on social media, content bleeding out of the eyeballs everywhere that you get your content. Guys, we've hit 2 o'clock. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.